Hello, welcome to the Honest Wargamer for another faction reaction for Age of Sigmar 3. I'm joined by my very good friend and a man who needs no introduction, Vince from Warhammer Weekly, to talk about Slaanesh. Vince, it's a pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you for gracing us with the presence of thee.
Well, as always, I'm honored to grace thee with my presence. It's a great time, Rob. As always,
Good.
happy to be here.
Good. Are you well? Before we get into it, are you well? How's things?
You're fantastic, man. I'm good. It's too early, as always, but I love doing this show. And as I said before we were live, and I will happily repeat on air, Rob, I love you more than I hate mornings. So there you go.
It's very kind. It's very sweet. And you've been knocking them out of the park with the past couple of shows. Past 2 weeks especially, I've enjoyed your Wednesday night shows if people haven't checked them out. So do check them out. And also Tyler's obviously fantastic. So super worth, not that I think anyone who's listening to this needs that, but you should give them a check out. And if you guys want to, I will include the links to Warhammer Weekly if you for some reason might need it in the show notes.
I appreciate it.
But you're on here to talk about Slaanesh. If you are new and haven't watched YouTube content from the Honest Wargamer before, it's a podcast, and also it's filmed in front of a live studio audience. That's right, it's the Twitch chat. We've got Tom Dix, Gloden, Winner Dave, the Kimmen, Angle, Neuroshock Dubs. A lot of people excited in here. Pete in the chat said, "Afternoon, folks. Just got parking ticket, so I'm ready for some salt and rage from Vince." We'll see how that goes. So Vince is going to be talking about Slaanesh. Before we get into how they played in 2, you're a big fan of Slaanesh. I don't think anyone needs that introduction, Vince, but just in case, do you want to let people know?
I am a giant fan of Slaanesh. I have invested a huge amount of my life into painting Slaanesh. I started playing Slaanesh in 2006. I've played it more or less throughout that time, off and on, throughout many edition changes. I have 6 painted Keepers of Secrets in my army, 7 total. I have 10,000 points of painted Slaanesh, all done to a display quality level. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what to say there. I truly do love the army. It is my favorite Chaos God. It's the only Chaos God that makes any sense, especially in the modern world.
Not the Skaven gods.
Oh,
They're the same
Skaven has the
pantheon
other.
now.
No, Skaven has my head.
Okay.
First of all, this Horned Rat isn't a Chaos God. Like, I know he wants to be, but we got to be honest. He's honest with himself. He knows he's not in there. One of his 13 personalities is honest with itself.
Okay.
So, Skaven is the perfect Chaos small c god. They're the only actual god interested in Chaos. And I love Skaven.
Mm-hmm.
But Smorgan was already here. I actually, as I was going to sleep last night, Rob, I started preparing talk tracks around Skaven, and then remembered that I'm talking Slaanesh today. But that's okay.
Apologies.
It's all right. No, it's all right. Skaven have my head. Slaanesh has my heart. There you go.
Okay, good. Okay, well, on that, let's talk about Slaanesh in Age of Sigmar 2. Because in Age of Sigmar 2, they had like a tumultuous kind of like setup and fall. So yeah, how did they play? I guess you don't have to go straight back to the activation walls, but I guess that's a good place to start for the people who are new. How did they play in 2, and how did they kind of end in 2 before we got into 3? Take me on that journey, because it's a big one, is what I'm gonna say.
Yeah, sure. Long ago, before the dawn of man. The year was 2019, an age we've all forgotten. A past age, a different age, where we would see each other, hug each other, touch each other, lick each other's sweat. In that time, an army was released into a meta that only knew how to fight and scrap in melee in the middle with relatively low armor saves. No other armies existed at that time. And into this was birthed a new world, a world of Slaanesh, an army that very easily made you not activate at all and would pile in its entire army twice into you, killing you before you ever fought. It was one of the least interactive and fun things to play against, but it was highly effective. And there were outcries and a gnashing of teeth. And from certain corners of the internet, there were shouts to ban this overpowered force. From certain corners, there were people who stopped playing it completely because they were sad, because they simply weren't having a good time with it. Then began a new age, the age of the Nerf. And so it was bequeathed that 4 to 5 nerfs would be necessary to bring this army into fair play. So the 4 or 5 nerfs were handed down, weakening Slaanesh's power each time. And eventually, the world changed beneath it. The meta evolved so that more gross shooting entered. Things like Seraphon and Lumineth and Tzeentch became more powerful than ever as they ascended to the top, eliminating the even remotest chance that our force would have any playability on the table or could achieve a victory. And thus we were relegated yet again to the shadows, wanting evermore to be competitive in tournaments, but finding it impossible.
Although if you were playing 40k, you picked up a load of cheap Keeper of Secrets for your OP 40k army, which was great news. The divergence of the timeline was really nice. Thanks, Vince.
Yeah.
That was beautiful. Yeah, there was a lot of nerfs. I would say that they went from they went from effectively a completely broken faction stats wise, because 70% plus isn't like ludicrous. 55% is plus is ludicrous. 60% is insanity. 70% plus is like, which is 40k currently are dealing with that problem. Then they did come down to like a far more reasonable after the first initial set of like changes to the loci and depravity points. Then they came to a far more reasonable level, and then then they got hit with a bunch. But that interestingly isn't the end of the story for Slaanesh in Age of Sigmar 2. A predominantly combat army that took out huge portion, like were successful in ways some armies before Daughters of Cain, which is a nice, by the way, lore-based parity, which we've never really discussed, that the on-tabletop kind of like counterbalance was the Daughters of Cain Slaanesh dominance. I always thought that was nice because they're so intertwined. And we didn't get to we got to a stage where they were okay. But that isn't the end of the story, because in Age of Sigmar 2, we still got another book and then an additional update in the Broken Realms. And I know you've talked about this a lot, but if you want to give us kind of your like TLDR on the newest Slaanesh book. So this is the book, if you guys are out there that are going to go buy, but came out in Age of Sigmar 2.
It is a very challenging book. How about that? I mean, look, I don't want to dwell too much on it, though it is still our current book. But I mean, it was underwhelming, and it was insulting that it was released at the same time as the Daughters of Cain book, which was so much better designed, outrageously pointed. I would like to make a small request here for the larger community, and I'm going to try this myself because I'm just as guilty of it. When things are obviously just bent, we need to stop saying, especially as commentators, that they're so good. I'll give you an example.
Oh, sure.
We talk about cogs in the current world, and we're like really in BOS 3.0. Yes, that's the wrong words. No, wrong. Incorrect statement. Bent. Cogs is bent. That is the correct statement. At 45 points, we know it's pointed wrong. Like, you know that.
Now let me reiterate this, because I had Logan Sammer on the show last night doing the 40k Spice Center with us. In 40k, there are two armies with a third to come that are very good under your terminology. Bent as all bananas.
Yes.
And the thing is Logan was like, what, like this, what a dumb game, so stupid. And I was like, hey man, this is the field I'm talking in. This is where I'm at. So
right.
the problem for me is like I'm never going to be able to affect change, so I have to live with it. So it goes from bent to just like, oh, that's really good. That's really good to
that's
me.
my problem. We hold up the stuff that we obviously know is problematic as good. This is just a minor thing that's been on my mind. Like, I wouldn't, like, they're definitely not good. Cogs isn't good. Shackles isn't good. Like, they're bent. That's what they are. Anyways, so Slaanesh is the opposite of that. Whatever the opposite of that is. And overall the new book was underwhelming, very highly pointed. We all thought, oh, good, that's fine, because we're just pointed for 3.0 because all the points are going up. No problems. Then 3.0 happened and our points went up further. I mean, we're paying for the sins of the previous book. We're also theoretically highly overpaying for what is supposed to be very powerful summoning. Okay, sure.
Yeah.
I'll remember that over here while Zinch is like, I'm getting like 32 fate points a turn. I don't even know how to stop getting fate points.
So
But
happy
why
with
not?
it is all I'm going to say. So happy with it. So they got a new book, and the new book, as you described, is challenging, not particularly effective in game as well. Although there haven't necessarily been the tournaments worldwide for us to really look at that. And then
Sure.
the launch of that book up until the launch of Age of Sigmar 3 coincided so closely that I don't really think they got a true run out. And also, mainly events that I would cover during that time period during lockdown, either here or because we've been able to have some small events, but there weren't many in the world. There were some in Australia, and there was some on TTS, which is where you would play. But Owen and a load of the other guys also, obviously also running TTS events. We normally run no FAQ, no play. I run no FAQ, no play, and therefore, like without like they didn't really coincide time enough for us to really see if our predictions as commentators that they're not going to be overly strong come to fruition. I feel that that's definitely true, but like it's more than likely the case. So going into Age of Sigmar 3, which, because the book was so close to Age of Sigmar 3, even though we knew it was meant to come out previous, like much earlier than when we did eventually get it, which was close to the deadline, I think a lot of people were thinking and assuming that the book obviously was pointed for 3. So before we start talking about the winners and losers in 3, can I ask you... oh, no, actually, can I get a couple off you in 2? What were the big units? Like, that's one of the things for new people, just in case they never accessed the army before. What, like, really stood out as units previously?
Generally, you're talking about the army was very much part and parcel of its main greater demon, which was the Keeper of Secrets. Obviously, she would feature in most lists, often in multiples, especially in the early days of the list. The Contorted Epitome was another really good one. The important part to understand, I think, for historical people who may not remember, is that it was unlike the rest of the Chaos armies up until the release of the new book here this year. It was basically a demon-only army.
Yeah.
Right. There was a little bit of mortal action in proper Slaanesh,
Yep.
quote unquote. Right. That is not our other forces, in like Hellstriders and stuff like that, but who were very popular as chaff. They were a hot take and still are, ironically. Some things never change. But realistically, you were running stuff like Keepers of Secrets, the Contorted Epitome, maybe Selesky. Selesky was a pretty popular choice because they could do a lot of work. This is the twins, the little demonette riding on top of the other thing, right? But yeah, I mean, those were it was a hero hammer army, right? So an important part to understand about the army is it was very much in its old world life based completely around the heroes. The heroes were the engine that drove everything. They had the locus. They got you depravity for the most part, right? So you had to be hero heavy. So you almost always had 6 heroes in your list.
Yeah.
Right. And so that drove everything. The other units were honestly just there to be chaff.
And it was also that the War Scroll Battalion, the Supreme Cyberites, was also I feel like a key element of that, right?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Because it was just a good way to put all your heroes into one battalion and get some extra command points.
Yeah.
Right. There were generally all 3 of the sub-factions in the previous book got some amount of play. They all had some defenders or, people who thought they were good. Even though they are all underwhelming, we have the sort of most underwhelming sub-factions they've ever printed in Invaders, Seekers, and Pretenders. But they still had play. They had things you could do. I mean, you watched me play an Invaders game 2 years ago in the summer at NashCon, when at one point in time I had 11 command points, and I went back and watched you commentating, and you were like, does he have 11 command points? What is going on in this game?
I'd never seen double digits before. I was so excited.
Yeah. That was a very regular occurrence for me to hit double-digit command points in the game.
That was a fun time. I really enjoyed that. But yeah, so those are the things that were common in 2. So before we get into, and obviously if you would like a deep dive on the 5 minutes I think Vince is about to give me on 3, I'm sure you can watch the 3 to 6 hours he's already recorded on it, maybe 12. Age of Sigmar 3 hot takes and thoughts. We've had everyone do that as a gamer and also as kind of an overview. What are your thoughts and feelings on it so far?
Yeah, sure. And yes, we've done about 12 hours on it so far. So said like the last show being the show we rounded it out with, which was the problems, the challenges, what's wrong with AOS 3.0, right?
Mhm.
So the my answer overall is I love 3.0. I think it's really great. I think at the same time there's a lot. Like it's a lot. 3.0 is a lot. Okay?
Yep.
I really love it. I love playing it. For me, it's wonderful. Okay? I love things that they've added to the game, like the heroic actions, the monster actions. New objective holding is great. I like the new scenario scoring
Yep.
mechanisms. Okay, I think that's really wonderful. I think a lot of the sort of rules cleanup and the way they organize things is very efficient and very clean and a great job. Like they did a wonderful job in defining 27 out of the 28 sections of the core book. One of them is utter trash and should be literally ripped out and replaced.
Which is the
But that's not
section,
bad.
or is that a spoiler? Is that like a YouTube
Enhancements.
Oh yeah, good.
It's
we all
enhancements. The enhancement section.
we all agree.
Yeah, it's utter like it's just bad.
It's bad mainly, Vince, because they gave people access to generic items that they could take, which is always a bad idea, right?
It's not the first of all, I know where you're going with that. I'm happy to see the
we won't revisit
that one. Yeah. No, I'm happy to have the Amulet of Destiny back and other things. The funniest part to me, Rob, about the universal items is that when we had 64 and they couldn't make 64 that were balanced evenly, I was like, well, sure, because there's 64 of them, that'd be impossible, right? We made 4 and we couldn't even get there. So I don't even know
we
what to
could
do with
get
that.
there, but anyway.
Sure. At any rate, not what we're talking about. No, the enhancement section, i.e., section literally like 27 dot what X, right? Of how to assign these, what are they, when do they occur, how do they occur, how do I as a player utilize these, is the most incomprehensible, like MIDI muck of nonsense that requires all these FAQs to untangle. And just still, people to right now, everybody's running around like, I don't know how this thing works. Can we do this thing? Maybe. It's just ridiculous. It's ridiculous to print that. It should be undone.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyways, so it's good. But that being said, it is a lot, and there's going to be a lot of players who are put off by third edition.
Yeah.
Hopefully less than come join the game. I really hope that's true. But like, it's a lot, man. When we're, like, if you don't have a sort of cheat sheet, especially here at the beginning, you're just going to forget a ton of stuff. It's much more mentally taxing to play the game now.
I played a game 2 days ago with
reality.
Mark, who's played 6 tournament games, and halfway turn 3, halfway through his turn, he started doing his shooting phase. He was like, oh, "My battle tactic is." I was like, "It's too late, mate. Like, it's 2 points to me. Like, you choose it at the start. You've had 6 games now, like, and 3 practice games. If you're not choosing your battle tactic at the start, now I'm punishing you." Like, that's where we're at. Like, you could do a couple of spells and then say battle tactic. I'm fine with that. You can't get to the shooting
as long
phase.
as it's still in the hero phase. Yeah.
And that's going to be a lot. It's a lot for new players to learn. Like, it's a lot for the scoring. Although, actually, I'm not sure if they hadn't played the game before, which was Sam's point the other day, which I think was so excellent. I think if they hadn't played the game before, they would be more comfortable with the scoring system. They'd be like, "Oh, start the turn, I got to pick a thing." Like, it's something that's ingrained. It's something we've got to read.
You're right. I mean, I think it can be easier. At the same time, I'll say this: if I was in, we talked about this on the show, because I think the number one challenge for 3.0, this was my point in the show that we did this week, is actually getting new players into the game. And if I was getting a new player to the game, I'd play like 1,000 points. I would cut grand strategies, battle tactics, and battalions. I would jettison all of them. I wouldn't even use them because we don't need them. You don't need them to play the game.
Yeah.
Okay? Like, the game functions sans those things just fine.
Yeah.
So don't use them. Just in your first games.
So you think challenging for new players, but ultimately, how do you feel about it for the competitive scene? Like, as a tournament
I mean, for the competitive scene, they're going to eat it up. It's a wonderful game for the competitive scene because it's going to skill separate better than any other edition we've had. But that's a double-edged sword.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, because you start at a lower skill threshold, like, when you start new. Yeah, like, and it's already, like, torturous to understand and play Warhammer, like, to the point. Like, they should, like, again, the beauty of Age of Sigmar 0, for all of its faults, pretty easy to pick up and play, which I think was one of those things. Okay, so any other hot thoughts about, or, like, just general thoughts about 3 before we kind of move forward?
No, I'm excited. I've gotten 6 games in so far. That sounds right. 6. And I've loved it. I'm the only thing I'm sad about is I'm not playing every day. I watched Morgan's Skaven review, and he's like, "Yeah, I got a game in every day this week." I'm like, "And I hate you."
I got 4 this week.
Yeah.
So, but you got.
Well, sorry, I'm not running tournaments out of my basement, so this is the world I live in. But
I mean, it's
I've gotten
super necessary though, because I think it's so different to the last edition. So like, you got to get those reps in. My question quickly, I haven't asked anyone else this yet, but this is just one for you. Do you have any hopes for the rest of the edition? Like, is there something you'd like to see from the battle tomes? I'm sure you might have covered this on the show, but is there something you'd like to see from battle tomes that maybe we haven't seen so far?
Yeah. How about this? I've got fears. Do you want that?
Sure. As good as
okay.
hopes.
So, in the new battle tomes, please do not, under any circumstance, include the following things.
Can't wait.
Army-specific battalions,
Yep.
grand strategies, or battle tactics.
Uh-oh.
Do not want.
Agreed.
Do not want.
Agreed. But kick-ass story, though, do want.
Fine. Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Fine. Yeah. I hope that I would honestly love to see all sub-factions or a lot of sub-factions go more to the city style or the slave style than anything else. I think that's a better style of sub-factioning than like the Stormcast model, than the Chamber model, if you will.
Yeah.
Or whatever it's called. I don't know, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, yeah. You want to see more city style. Like, would you say Seraphon's not that style for you? Like, is that different?
Seraphon's kind of both. It's like I want to see less other things. I don't want to see. I don't want to see any book that looks like Lumineth again.
I think Seraphon,
where we just throw all the rules at them. Like you have unit keyword type rules. Your Sonari, your Venari, your Alarith. Then also you have sub-factions. Then also you have this and this and this and this. Like that book it's ridiculously over-designed, and they should never make another book like that. It's just over the top. Like I watched my buddy who's a pretty cash player, but who picked up Lumineth.
Yep.
Right? Like he's played High Elf since literally 1995. And for the first time since I met him, he painted models. Seriously, he's had the same High Elves, and he's been playing off of like his original painted army since '97.
Okay.
Right. And when Lumineth came out, he's like, "These guys are awesome. I love these things. They're just like my High Elves that I fell in love with back in the '90s." He went out, he bought them. He's actually started painting again, and I'm so happy for him. He literally hasn't painted in more than 20 years.
Amazing.
That made him pick up a brush. Okay, it's wonderful. So I play Lumineth almost every week. And watching him play in 3rd edition, he's like, all right, like I'm going to use a penny here, and then, wait, hold on. That's the most common phrase. Hold on. I also need to do this thing. Okay, roll here. All right. That case, I spent a penny. This bravery goes away. They're now -1 bravery. Okay, hold on. What else? Okay, also I'm going to all out defense over here and as well. All right, so it's Iliatha, so I'm going to spend another command point. I'll have this unit do it as well. Okay. All right, I think I did everything. And I'm like, cool. And then I do one more thing, and he's like, all right, hold on. Anyway, please never make another that.
It's fun to watch, though, because people are like, stop doing things.
Yeah. And I don't lament him. I like playing him. He's a perfectly fun guy.
Hey, if you really want to stress a Lumineth player out, just ask at the end of every phase if they want to do something now. That's so fun, because they're already stressed. Like, they're like, oh my god, do you want to do something now? They'll be like, stop. All right, so let's talk about Slaanesh. Let's talk about Slaanesh in 3rd edition. Winners and losers. Take me through them. Take me what your feelings and thoughts are on winners and losers.
Short list.
Okay.
All right.
So yeah, I guess one of the things I didn't ask well enough in some of the other shows as well is winners and then comparative winners, because I think Chris did a really good job with Idoneth Deepkin, because he talked about Eels being a loser, but I still think that they're very competent in game. So I guess really it's like, what are the winners in the book, and then also like where do they sit is also probably the other thing.
Yeah. 100%. So yes, an excellent framing, Rob, because look. The saying anything is a winner in Slaanesh is already a stretch. Like, by the comparative of most other armies, the answer would be error 404, winner not found. Okay. That's just the hard, unfortunate reality of the thing. Now, it doesn't mean the army's unplayable. It isn't. Okay. I have played it in 3rd edition and had fun. Okay. But it is a fragile, still often melee focused, finicky, finesse army. And in a world of a lot of things that just hit like Mack trucks or can withstand any amount of pain, like who can anvil up in 3rd edition, as we've talked about, right? And just be like, I don't take damage. That's a funny thing. That's a funny thing you're doing to me. Slaanesh has neither the hardest hammers nor any kind of anvils. You have no hammers. You have no anvils. Okay. Yep. You have mobility to a point. Like, you have some mobility. We're not the fastest army in the game, but we're also not terrible at it. It's almost reliant completely on its overpriced summoning. Okay, like that is to say, but I say overpriced. I mean every other unit in the game, in the book, is paying for the sins of the summon.
Yeah.
Okay. To ridiculous levels. I mean, it's just so obvious on paper when you look at it. Like, if you even begin any kind of unit comparisons, it's comical, right? You look at like Blitzbar Archers for 180 compared to Sentinels, or any other shooting unit in the game. Let's not pick Sentinels.
Reavers.
You know what? Let's not pick Sentinels.
Let's pick Namati Reavers for Deacon.
100%. I think Reavers have play, and I agree with your guess. I think Reavers have play in the new edition, or Reavers or Iron Drakes. Okay, like, it's comical to have 10 guys that shoot averagely on a 6-up save with Bravery 6 for 180 points with 10 wounds. Like, that's just comical. Okay. So when it comes to it, there just isn't really the normal tools you would find in armies, right? Well, I'm sure you're like me. When you build an army, you look and you say, okay, what are my anvils? Like, what am I going to move into a position and hold and be able to hold an objective and withstand some punishment? What are my hammers and my counter punchers, right? That kind of thing. What's my sort of distraction pieces that I can use to draw the enemy into bad plays and bad positions, right? And then what's sort of my general utility that's going to increase the value of everything else? That's kind of how I tend to think about forces. I'm sure it's probably how you think about your army. Yep. That isn't a game you can play with Slaanesh, because you're just not going to find anything that fit multiples of those categories.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. So instead it's really, as I said, it's a 4F's force. Okay. It's a fragile, finicky, finesse. We all know the last F force.
It's all right. We're not on your show. Fucked is what they are.
So now, that being said, it's not like they have no play. Winners and losers. Let's get into it. Okay. The winners in my mind are, ironically, Sigvald. I think he's actually quite a winner. He's bordering on actually being good anyways.
Yep.
Okay? Like, even by the standards of a normal army. Now, he's a unique character, obviously, a Doi, right? Which means he can't be kitted in any way. But thankfully, he does a lot of good things. He's one of the few sources of Ren 2 in the army. He ignores ward saves, which is wonderful. Yep. Right? He has a great built-in bonus to charge at +3 to charge.
Yep.
Okay. He's fantastic in, like, Lurid Haze Invaders, which is one of the subfactions they added in Wrath of the Everchosen.
Yep.
Because in Lurid Haze you get to pull D3 units off the board after setup and then ambush them in the first turn. Only in the first turn, because we do anything that anybody else does worse. Yep. Okay? Like, if somebody else just gets a rule, we get that rule with a restriction or a weird downside. His is only in turn 1. And I hear you, Beast of Chaos players. I know you're out there like, yeah, join the club. I get it, folks. I get
But
it,
what's
guys.
weird about what it like? So I think like what is like a conversation point as well is that this is a brand new army. Even the demon side is like much newer than many of the other product ranges that exist. Like so, like it's like when Vince talks about this stuff, like this is an entire product range, and all the mortal stuff is brand new. For them to look at it and think, how am I going to make this playable on the tabletop, and then like. So when you haven't got any of those overlapping abilities or rules that they threw at Lumineth, for example, it feels so much. The difference is starker. Beasts of Chaos is like, hey, they just found some models and now here's a battle tome for you. Like we don't care.
Sure.
Like, this is brand new, right? Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, it's weird you have so much beautiful stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
And yet here we are with these rules. Yeah, I mean they're just afraid of the summoning. And honestly, I wish they made the wrong choice. I don't know why Slaanesh is like the summoning army. That makes no sense to me. Just weaken our summoning, please, and reasonably cost us, and the world would be much more fun. Like, I don't like having to. It's a terrible tournament army, by the way.
Okay.
Logistically, as somebody who played it in tournaments for more than a year, it is so annoying to take Slaanesh to a tournament.
Okay.
Because first of all, everything in the army is fiddly, and breaks easily.
Yep.
Like you have a lot of extremely fiddly models. Okay. And then on top of that, you have to bring, if I'm bringing a 2,000 point force, I have to bring 4,000 points.
Yes.
3,500, 4,000 points. Because I might need to summon anything. And because I could have a game where I get on a crazy run and just start summoning like mad. Right? And like, oh, tiniest violin in the world for me on that, right? But that isn't every game. And whatever. Like I don't want to we'll talk about the summoning later. But the point is you just have to have so much crap. It's really annoying. I'd rather just bring my army and then occasionally summon some stuff. Like, fine.
There was a question in the chat actually, so I think it's a good one. Free summoning was introduced in 2. Some people might not know that. Age Sigmar 2, we didn't have free summoning previously. The 40k model that they have now was ripped off our AOS 1, and that was you had to you had to be down points in your army list and summon into that. You still pro free summoning, do you think?
I am. I think it's the right thing to do. It makes sense in the context of the game and what's happening. You just need to make a system that's fine. No one's complaining about Khorne's free summoning.
No. But the core players are.
Or Nurgle's free summoning.
The core players are like, could this be better, please?
Because they're looking across the fence at what they see as the upsides of like Tzeentch and Slaanesh summoning or whatever and being like, I want to go to there. You know, no one's complaining about Beasts of Chaos free summoning. It's great. Those are all pretty correctly pointed. I think Beasts might be the most accurate, perfect summoning mechanic in the game, actually.
Okay.
Like the way it works. I think like tempo-wise and what it achieves, I think it's actually near perfect.
Okay. But Sigvald, that's where we were. Sorry.
Yeah. Anyways, Sigvald's a winner. Okay, yeah. He's great to come in off the backfield. He's beautiful in Lurid Haze. He can get in there. He can do work. He doesn't have a huge number of wounds, but he does have a 3-up base save and a 4-up after save, which makes him pretty hard in the current edition. Right? He can have his best day ever. He can easily all-out defense. If he's in Lurid Haze, by the way. He also has an option to use a +1 to save in the combat phase. That's the command ability that Lurid Haze gives you. Mm-hmm. Okay. So the point being is that you can actually all-out defense somebody else if you need to and still have a +1 save for him. So you do have the ability to use it twice in the combat phase. You effectively have 2 all-out defenses in Lurid Haze Invaders, which is cool.
Yeah.
So it's good. He's good. Sinessa, one of the new twins.
Yeah.
Right? Although the twins were not what I was expecting at all and are very disappointing vis-a-vis what they should be as the progeny of Slaanesh. Yeah. She's pretty good. She's like 260. She's a big demon. She has a relatively interesting spell that she can fire off at unlimited range all over the board, so she can go hide back out of dispel range and just start trying to hero snipe, which is a relatively useful thing in this army. She's mobile. She flies, which is something cool. That's pretty uncommon in Slaanesh, right? The Bladebringers on chariots are generally, I would consider.
Would you say that?
Winners.
Sorry, just for a moment. I want to thank Nurgle Matthew in the chat for the gift subscriptions. Big love to the Wicket Keeper. Would you say that like that you don't have the ability to pick out characters other than one of the twins? Like, would you say that that's something that the army generally lacks, like as a utility
Sure.
piece?
100%. It's very hard for us to remove characters. Like, yes, we have shooting, and it's generally terrible at like removing an enemy character. It's not. There's no catapult equivalent over here,
There's no Kairos in the
right?
portal. The perfect
Sure.
character kit.
Yeah, who's just like 6 mortal wounds go. It's just like no, that doesn't exist. Like we depending on how you build your shots that you're throwing out on, probably underwhelming numbers that you're praying for like mortal wounds or something maybe.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry, I was interested
No,
because
it's okay.
I was actually like, because you sometimes think about some of the other armies and their tool sets. Like, weirdly, other than Archaon, Tzeentch doesn't really have a combat unit. It's one of the things I've been struggling to put inside of a list at the moment.
Sure.
I mean, a lot of armies would cry out for either Skyfires or Enlightened, but I'm and I might be putting a unit of Skyfires in the list to try them out as like a little, like, I'm going to go like trade off on objectives. But like some armies do lack X in some situations, and I thought about it because I always see Slaanesh as like I'm just going to hit your front lines, and then it used to be I'm going to hit your front lines and win, and now it's going to hit your front lines and die.
Sure.
And I hadn't thought about that utility, so the twins are a nice new piece I hadn't thought about, which is nice inside the context of the army, right?
It really is. So for everybody at home to understand what Sinessa does, she can unlimited range the Pavane of Slaanesh. Okay, and the Pavane of Slaanesh is like it is a spell that literally no one ever used, and so everybody looked at and had to remember what it did, because its range on anybody except her is like 3 inches. Okay, so you got to be like up in their grill, which has just made it unusable. But since she can literally turn it from like 3 inches to the board, right?
Yep.
She can also, by the way, issue commands to anybody on the board anywhere.
That's awesome.
So she has an unlimited range for her commands, which is good. So like you've got a unit off operating alone, but suddenly they need a command and they don't have a champion, and there are actually a couple units in this army that you would want to do that with. No problem. She's got you. She's got you covered.
Mm-hmm.
At any rate, or somebody yanks your champion out of the unit, or whatever, right?
Yep.
The way Pavane of Slaanesh works is you roll a number of dice equal to their move.
Okay.
And every 5+ is a mortal wound.
Oh wow! Great against some eels.
It's only against heroes.
Oh, okay.
But
it's still good.
It's still really good, especially if you have heroes that buff themselves of movement. Like, for example, I had somebody put their... I played this last weekend and was playing Slash against Soulblight, and somebody buffed up Manfred with, like, the +6-inch move spell, and suddenly his move was, like, a bajillion miles an hour. And so I was like, okay, just... I get 20 dice or whatever, right? It's great.
Amazing. That's great. I hadn't thought about that. Yeah, when they used amethystine pinions. That's cool.
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
And so, it's like it's a good piece we didn't have before. And she's only 9 wounds, so she can still get Lookout Sir. She can still fit it in as a sub commander, right? Like, fantastic.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, she's pretty good. The Bladebringers are okay. A lot of them are 9 wounds or less. The big Herald on Exalted Chariot's only 10 wounds, but she's still worth it, even though she has the worst wounds in the game. Simply because she has an attack profile that has 9 attacks with Rend. It's only Rend 1, but still it has Rend at least.
Yeah.
And she can Flaming Weapon herself because she's a spellcaster.
Yeah, baby.
Right. So she can run in, and the unit itself, her 9 attacks goes to 10, actually, every combat phase, because at the start of combat, she grinds and gets +1 attack. So she does mortal wounds. Like, she charges in, she does mortal wounds. Start of combat, she does mortal wounds. And when she does that, she gets +1 attack. So the unit makes 23 attacks, 10 of which would be on 2 damage with Flaming Weapon, right? So she's actually quite a destructive piece.
Yeah.
She's one of the few things we have that can actually do damage if you put Flaming Weapon on her and goes in there. Because she can make so many attacks.
Yeah.
Right.
So you're not really adding to a bunch of quality. You're just being like, I've got so many. I'm just adding +1 to all this. This is great news.
Right, because her base numbers are 3 and 4.
Yeah.
It's not a great base profile for a hero.
Yeah.
Right.
Of course. Yeah.
But if you okay, I'll give her +1 to hit by her throwing a magic item on the Fane. So cool. If I roll a 2 up, then I didn't waste that, and I get +1 to hit for the rest of the game. Now I don't have to use the command ability on her. If I put her in her best day ever when she charges in, now she's on 2s and 3s. Okay, that's actually pretty reasonable numbers. You know, if you have somebody else acquiesce the unit, which gives you reroll 1s to hit, now you're on 2s, rerolling 1s, 3s, you know, neg 1, 2 damage or 1 damage, depending on which profile. So again, like, you have to do a lot of work, but you can get there.
It's pretty effective.
You can get there. Depending on the unit. Again, like, because it's all Rend 1, you know, yeah, exactly.
Not that good.
The army, which is classically known for Rend, ironically, and in 40k, I think, is still known for being able to, like, slice through Space Marine armor like it's a joke. Okay? Because they have all sorts of ways to just shoot their Rend up to 1,000,000. In this game is actually one of the weakest punching armies. Like, yes, everything you have is basically Rend 1, but everything you have is basically Rend 1.
And the whole rest of the Mortal Realms got +1 save this edition. So
Correct. Like, Rend 1 is basically the most worthless thing you can have. Because you paid points for that.
Yep. In a Matrix. Although, is the Matrix in any way related to the points that come out of it? Who knows? Thanks to Owen. Sorry, just want to thank Owen.
Owen Jackson. Yeah. The Owen Jackson in the chat. I am honored. The Owen Jackson.
He's coming on to do a faction reaction for the OC Art Bone Reapers, which is fun. Which has been an emotional roller coaster for 3 with I'm going to dominate. I hate this army. I'm going to dominate. It's like this at the moment, so I'm excited.
Fantastic. Well, he's got a more complicated task than me. As bad as my life is, I'm not sure I'm in the OBR's camp, so that's nice. You know, there's always somebody, right?
There's always someone, yeah.
No matter how far down you fall on the ladder, there's always somebody on a lower rung. At any rate, so those are kind of the winners. I mean, that's basically the winner list, buddy.
Okay.
I wish that it was longer. Actually, you know what? I'm going to go out on a limb here.
Yeah.
I'm going to go out on a limb. I'm going to give you one more winner.
Okay.
Here we go.
Okay.
Twin Souls.
Fucking okay.
You ready?
Is it because they've got an ego pomp as the commander?
Well, first of all, that's amazing. We all love the ego pomp.
Everyone loves the ego pomp. Yep.
Twin Souls are 185 points for 5.
Mm-hmm.
Which is just hilarious to say. Okay?
Yep.
They're 2 wounds each, obviously, right? On a 4-up base save. And they have the stupidest rule in the game, because, of course, we don't get nice things, where every turn they can choose their little dance. But they don't get to choose it. You choose it once, and then it automatically sequences for the rest of the game.
Terrible.
So awful. Thank you, I love not being able to use the tools in my army when I want or need them. Like, that's a really good... A little quick note to the designers, who I'm sure are going to watch this. Please don't write rules like that. It's really super feel bad. Because it takes away my ability as a player to actually feel like I'm in control of my unit. And it's stupid.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Like, I just hate it. I really hate it.
That's why I don't rate the Vengori Lord at all. Like, I can completely see, we had Greg at the weekend.
Yeah, I get it.
Like, mixing with Nagash.
The Vengorian Lord gives me the same feeling.
Yeah.
Yep.
I just don't understand. Whereas Skaven's the option. Skaven's like, do you want to blow yourself up? And you're like, yes, I do.
Right. Skaven's the perfect way to do it. Because you're like, you can get a pretty normal unit thing, and it's fine, no risk. Or you can choose to be, you want to get nuts? Let's get nuts! You know, like that's, anyways. Yeah. But this isn't the Skaven show. Okay, don't tempt me like that, Rob.
Sorry.
Stop tempting me.
Sorry.
At any rate, it's appropriate to tempt me in this Slaanesh show. So, the point is, here. So you can either get reroll hits, which is actually really good because reroll hits are rare now.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can get a 5-up ward save, which is really good because it actually makes them quite tough. If you had full control, I would back this unit 1,000%, right? If I could just choose which one I wanted in which turn, like, this would be truly a good unit, okay? The fact that you've got a stance dance in some predetermined way means you need to, like, fifth-dimensional chess, big brain your way into figuring out exactly what that unit's going to do, like the Sherlock meme of seeing all the numbers and things in front of you, figure out what this unit's going to do in every round from here on. Now, why I like this unit is because they're 3 attacks each. 4s, 3s, no rend, but 2 damage base. And they have a 2-inch reach on a 32 mil base. So they actually can fight in the new coherency rules really easily. Like, you just set them up in basically 5 and 5, and they're great. They're golden. They can do everything they need. They get all their attacks. They make a crap ton of attacks.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's a lot. It's like 30 attacks coming out of the unit. Don't forget the whole army does have double tapping on 6s.
Yeah.
Right? And though they're on 4s, and that's kind of like, at the same time, it's pretty easy to now get them +1 to hit.
Yes.
Right? So, like, yes, it really is crappy if you run into neg1 to hit, but at the same time, you know, if you, like, there are ways around it, you can still get, but if you're on, like, 3s re-rolling, that's really good. Like, if you're in your re-roll hits phase and you go to 3s re-rolling, when 6s are also double taps, multiple times when I've played them in 3.0 games, I've gotten more hits than I rolled dice. Right? I'd be like 30 attacks or 31 attacks because the ego pump. 31 attacks, I hit 34 times.
Ego pump forever. Yeah.
Like, that's a great thing. And then your wounds on 3, no rend, 2 damage. And I'm not overpaying for the rend. Right?
Which is useless. Yeah.
And instead, just everything that sneaks through is 2 damage, which is great. Right? Like, they actually can hit fairly hard. So I've been running a 10 block of them a little bit and actually liking it. You have to be very careful with them because they will be fragile if you let them get called out, like everything in the army. But that's just the story of playing Slaanesh. The story of playing Slaanesh is you have to be careful because if you take one misstep, you just lost. Congratulations.
Yes.
But yeah, that would be my winners list. My losers is like Keepers of Secrets right at the top of the list. Makes me sad to say it, but it's so true.
So can I ask about Keepers? Because I was actually going to ask about Keepers in the winners section, but I wanted to wait to see if they made it into the losers section. I assume it's the point.
They're awful.
I assume it's the points, but I would have thought with In Their Finest Hour, like the +1 save. So effectively, like my issue with them obviously was their save. Like with a 3-up, ignoring round 1. So for you guys at home, again, that's stacking something like a Mystic Shield or In Their Finest Hour together, or something like All Out Defense as well. Effectively gives them +1 save and means they ignore the first pip or rend. Like I felt like that would have been, and because there is some healing inside the army, and then flaming weapons because they're not unique characters. I was like, like is that a thing, or like so? What is it that doesn't make that a thing?
Are you familiar with the term throwing good money after bad?
Wait, have you read my autobiography?
Yeah. Investing in a bunch in a keeper is literally throwing good money after bad. Okay. Fundamentally, they just don't do what they used to in the army. So they're 420 points, which is hilarious. I'm sorry, Rob. Let me just pause here for a minute.
Sure.
How much is Gotrek?
435, baby.
Yeah, those seem absolutely equivalent. Anyways.
Wait, how much is for a keeper? Sorry?
420 points.
It's because he's pointed for Age of Sigmar 4. This is why you don't understand, Vince. He's pointed for the next edition. Yeah.
I mean, it's madness. When you look at what else in the game is 420 or what's cheaper, like my Lumineth buddy who's walking around with his now much more expensive Cow Mountain, the named Cow Mountain, Alarith or whatever, the Stoneheart King, who's still far cheaper than the Keeper, by the way. And he's just walking into things, making like 7/5 damage attacks. And I'm like, this seems reasonable. Sure. Meanwhile, this thing's also on like a 2-up save, broadcasting a neg1 to hit aura in 12 inches, never losing anything off its profile because it's got a little Stone Mage buddy somewhere in the zip code near it, giving away free command points to other heroes. I haven't stopped reading its abilities yet, Rob, and it's cheaper.
The one for me, I think the Cold Stone, and that's a reference to it, like baseline for monstrous heroes has to be the Frostheart, the Anointed on Frostheart Phoenix. Like that has to be the baseline. That thing has been good in competitive Age of Sigmar for 4 years. Yeah, and he's only ever gone up fractional points, like 240, 280, 300, 320, now back to 315. Yeah, like, and that thing is bonkers for 315. Bonkers. And
I completely agree.
And that has to be my baseline for all monsters and monstrous heroes. Everything around that. Keeper of Secrets, can it survive as well? No. Is it as fast? No. Does it do an aura? No. Can it do more damage than Frostheart? Yes. That's where the one thing it does, like that it brings more than Frost up, but not tons. Like it's fine. So like, should it be about the same? Like yes, and so 100 or too many points, I think, for a keeper is what I'm going to say.
Yeah, and my point with Avalonor or whatever, the Stoneheart King, whatever his name is he is cheaper and has like 50 more abilities and is better. And people are like, I saw it already in the comments. Every time I say this, people are like, buddy, you only move 6 inches. And I'm like, the board is much smaller now. And all of the objectives are like 2 inches away from each other in the center of the board. So it really doesn't matter, does it? No, it doesn't. Like a lot of scenarios are just grouping objectives closer in the center. People with a 6-inch move can just be much more impactful in the game. There are diagonal scenarios in 3.0 where you start 12 inches away from each other.
Yeah. Although the actual it normally says inside the battle plan. I don't think there's one where you start closer than 18.
They say 9 inches away creates a bubble, but because of the way the hypotenuse works, of where you can actually deploy, it's actually like 12.3 is what your
from your
actual
opponent's
distance is.
Potential deployment zone as well.
Potential deployment.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Where they could place, if they place a person on the absolute front and you place a person on the absolute front, they're like 12.3 away.
Yeah, yeah.
Which is okay. Anyways, so
Close.
Anyways, and by the way, Avalonor isn't that good. He's not even like the thing that is the hotness in the army. That's the joke.
At all. Yeah. So keeper's
right?
bad.
Yeah, their command ability used to be great because they could use it on themselves, or they could use it like you would just spam that command ability. They would do it to themselves. They would do it to every other person in combat. Not that you couldn't do it multiple times ever. I mean, it's not like a Volturnus type of spam where you just be like boop, 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 and stack it, right? It would be like I fight and I fight again, and then this person fights and they fight again, and she would sit there and make everybody fight twice, and it was largely how you won. Now the fact that 1, 3.0's fundamental rules made it so you can only use it once in the combat phase. 2, the fact that it's a combat phase order, okay, means it's basically worthless.
Yes.
All combat phase command abilities on War Scrolls are competing for the most valuable other things. +1 to hit, +1 to save. Okay? Your new baseline is you've got to be better than that, or you're worthless.
Mm-hmm. Or you're an aura.
Combat phase command.
Yeah.
Right? Like, if you have an ability that says, in the combat phase, pick one unit and they get to do a thing, if you're not better than +1 to hit or +1 to save, you're garbage. You're trash now.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's the bottom line. It's a sort of Magic the Gathering thing. If you're not a land, like, if you're a land that's not at least as good as a basic land, then you're just okay.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Right? And so, like, her command ability is basically worthless. She hits for an average of 7.5 damage. That's her real average damage. Mm-hmm. Against a 4-up save, by the way, which is getting harder and harder to find these days.
It is.
Okay? Mm-hmm. Like, I would actually say the new average save in the game is 3.
I would say it's probably...
average.
Yeah,
save.
Average. Fine. Average 3.
The thing you actually need to kill, you're right, is probably on a 2-up.
Yeah, most common, I think, in the future is going to be 2.
Ignoring a couple pips of red.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? But her she's doing 7.5 damage against a 4-up save. Okay?
Yeah.
For 420 points. And by the way, there's no other utility on her scroll. That's it. That's what she does. She's a combat monster. That's it. She's pointed for outer space, Rob. I don't even, like, I can't,
It's bad.
There's
I'm with you. I'm with you. And what's worse is Shalaxi is arguably worse.
Shalaxi isn't worth talking about. She's such a loser. She's the biggest loser in the entire game. It's nonsense. She's so bad. She's pointed as though a literal crazy person pointed her. Literal crazy person.
I think the whole book is, but we said that at the Age of Sigmar 2 Battletome release, like, which is one of the interesting things, because I'm going to ask you a question at the end, like, for people listening at home, I'm going to ask what happens, in your opinion, if points come down on a lot of the Slaanesh stuff, because I think actually a good argument for when a new edition occurs is, like, they repoint everything, and so because of that, there's always just some joke units that are far too cheap.
Sure, still actually
like that,
one of them that's too expensive, and the other one that's far too cheap. Yeah.
Yeah, but in some situations, is this book like a core point issue, like, or actually is it still just a mechanics thing? But I'm going to ask that towards the end once you've done the losers.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
Absolutely, got it. So, I mean, like, people are like, oh, but you can give her the Amulet of Destiny now, and she'll have a 5-up ward, and she can heal 5d3 around. And I'm like, super cool, I guess. Like, I'm not sure what I'm getting for that. Yay. My now does probably an average of 4.5 damage monster is survivable, kind of.
It's
Like,
also
boy,
it's
this
also
was
it's also
totally
it's
worth it.
also it's also a weak point as well because it's a VP. Like you got to ask yourself whenever you take any monster now, do I want to
Sure.
give my opponent a VP? Like with Archeon, sure. If they take that VP off you, that's fine because he's going to earn a ton. Because the thing I'm referencing is in scoring. If you lose a monster every battle round, if your opponent kills one of your monsters in a battle round, they'll score an additional victory point. So you kind of, if you take 5 monsters, like you can't unless there's some. So if you take 4, let's just make it easy for everyone at home. If you take 4,
You can
then
take 5
potentially
monsters because not all
you
monsters
can
are
in some
behemoths.
in some setups.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can. I'm just making it easy for people. Like, I can take 5. No, the restriction is 4 unless there's something that changes it. You're giving up 4 VP, right? Potentially. So that's something you need
Yeah.
to kind of ask yourself, like, what's your plan? But then there's potential. I think there's 4 battle tactics that you can achieve with a monster. So like you potentially there's only 4 back. So there's loads of kind of like talk about anyway. So why would you take a Keeper of Secrets who's also potentially a VP? So I think like your point is they don't produce a lot of utility and they don't really fit a role is also compounded by the inability, like the ability to give your opponent victory points, which you don't want to do anyway, right?
Right. Yeah, I mean, they're just not worth it. They're just not. They don't do anything for a lot of points.
Yeah.
I don't know what else to say. Like, I wouldn't put the keeper into anything now that isn't basically chaff.
Yeah.
Because I'm not sure she'd do anything to it.
Yeah, and even then, like, yeah, I'm with you. Like, it's amazing what the all-out defense does. Like, it's just amazing. Like, you just go to a unit, you're like, oh wow, you're a 4-up now. Like, it's really interesting. I've really enjoyed it. Watching people push. Thanks, Josh, for subscribing, and thanks everyone for tuning in. I've just really enjoyed watching units kind of get that little upgrade during that moment. They're like, no, 4-up save now. You're like, it's interesting. Oh, thanks to Marty8 Hoy for donating £10.69 to the show. That's rad of you. Thanks,
Awesome.
thanks, bud. That's so cool. All right, sorry, Vince. What were you saying? Other losers. So, and Shalaxi, not such a loser. It's not even ever worth even touching on.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, like in the bin so hard. Like, I would spike her into the bin like a football at not your football.
One attack
football.
on Soul Piercer is all I'm ever going to say.
It's ridiculous.
One attack.
I mean, again, she's not even worth talking about. It's ridiculous. Anyways, other losers. I mean, Damonettes still the persistent losers. They're cool because you can summon them. That's the only way they ever show up. Is you get 12 depravity points and you summon 30 of them to literally stand on an objective and be like, "Hi, I'm here now." That's it. That's why they exist. The tiering now of so like there are 4 basic demons that have been part of the game for all of its history, right? Yeah. And the tiering now on them. I'll do this in my space here. Here we go. Right up here at the very top of the screen, you can barely see them. Just their little toesies are hanging on. They're so high up. Are pink horrors. Okay? They're way up here. Then down here, still quite high, but very good, are plague bearers, who just suddenly got a huge amount of utility and awesome heroes who can synergize with them and make them do amazing things. Then you go way down here at the very bottom of my screen, okay? And like just poking the tips of their little horns and hair pieces up are Bloodletters and Damonettes, who are both fighting for who can be the worst.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they are the definition of worthless, and they got more.
Do you have any priests in Slaanesh?
No, you can take a coalition war shrine like all chaos forces, but that's it. No, you don't have any.
Just poke that in front of 30 demons. I'm just hoping. Look, I'm just scrambling for answers.
Sure.
Vince. I'm scrambling for answers.
I thought about it too. Is it worth taking a war shrine just to try to get it within 9 inches so I can curse somebody so I can then make my Damonettes actually do something?
Yeah, but then you don't get exploding hits. You don't get exploding hits, do you?
Correct. Then you don't get your exploding 6s anymore. Yes. Correct.
Thanks to 40k Horn Dog for subscribing. Appreciate that a lot. That's very lovely of you.
He started up a little hype train there, too.
I love 40k Horn Dog. Big up. All right.
So, yes, then you lose your other army ability. Correct, Rob. And by the way, see previous statement on good money after bad, right? Your unit of Damonettes who run around on a 5-up save.
I'm just trying here, man. Like
With,
on all of
with
these
their
shows.
2 attacks on 4s and 4s. Like, look out for these guys. They're really bringing the heat. That are how much? How much, Rob? I hear you saying for 10 wounds
For Damonettes.
on a 5-up save. Damonettes, yeah. How much are those, Rob?
20.
I don't you wish?
I do.
No.
What are they?
They're 140.
Shut up.
I swear to God Almighty.
Thanks, Tarquin for gifting some gift subscriptions, by the way. Massive love for that. Appreciate it loads.
Yeah, 140.
Okay.
Yeah, this is a magical world we live in Slaanesh. Comical.
Yeah.
Comical.
Okay. Yeah. Pretty rough is what. Thanks, Jim Olius, for donating 169 in bits. That's also nice. Okay, so other losers.
I appreciate that I'm only like 75 points away from a unit of horrors with that. That's great. So yeah,
horrors are great at 215. I'm fine with horrors at 215. With them being the worst interpretation of how they play. Perfect.
Sure. They're bent. So to return to my earlier statement, they're bent. You bent.
Yeah.
Okay. So other losers, I mean, boy, there's a lot. I'm not going to name everything in the army that's bad, but there's a lot.
Okay.
Fiends are a big loser because of fundamentals, because now they can't stack a bunch of penalties anymore, which is the only way that they survived. Glutos, because he went up 75 points and he's now 475. He's a loser who you might actually still play once in a while. All right. Yep. Because he at least does something. Like, he does broadcast a big giant aura of neg 1 to hit, which is useful. And he is a good spellcaster. Like, he actually has a built-in bonus, and he's a multicaster. So he's okay. Right? But he's still a loser because he went up, like, a lot of points, and he's that big and not a monster.
How much is he?
475.
Shut up. It's 475 points.
I know.
That's 40 more than Gotrek, man.
I know.
Okay.
I know.
Okay.
I don't know what to tell you.
Well, I tell you what to do. The chat have got our back, Vince. Thanks to Hamsfan for donating 5 gift subscriptions. All of them for the bin guy who wrote the book. He's also gifted you a gift subscription, Vince, in the chat at the same time.
Yes. Awesome.
Anyway, sorry, you carry on.
No, you're fine. I did forget one winner that I should mention, which is Hellstriders.
Okay.
This is what counts as a winner in this army. Hellstriders are base 4-up save mortals. Okay. Yep. Like, if you take them with Hell Scourges, they can charge in and give a unit neg 1 to hit on the turn they charge. They have a 14-inch move, which is good.
Okay.
Okay. They have built-in reroll to charge, which is good. Mm-hmm. Okay. And they are just good chaff. They're 135 points, which is still too much for 10 wounds on a 4-up save. That's literal only point is to exist and then die.
Yep.
But, like, it just is. But they're the cheapest battle line we have.
Right.
At 135 points, that's your cheapest battle line. It's underwhelming. It doesn't do a lot, but it's okay.
Okay.
Like, it counts as a winner in this force. In anybody else's force, they would look at that and go, no way I'm taking that. That's crap.
Yep.
But in our world, it's like, okay, that's doable. You know.
It's the real Sophie's Choice moment in this army, isn't it? Every time.
Yeah. I mean, the Contorted Epitome lost because she lost her rerolls on anything except casting, which is just nonsensical. So she can't reroll to unbind or dispel anymore. Perfect. Exactly what I wanted. Right in the world when endless spells become really important, and many of them are OP as all get out. I'm glad they decided to take that away. That's useful. And then, you know, like the Infernal and Rapturous, because she doesn't add to Depravity anymore, so she's bad now and just terrible. And basically your Blissbarb Archers, because they're 180 points for your shooting battle line. It's nutso. You know, there are some people who built the army to be fishing mortal wound type of finesse things, where you have either Blissbarb Seekers or Blissbarb Archers, and you do like little peppery shots. And I hear people talking like, yeah, I do little peppery shots and build up Depravity and summon, and they play this like incredibly careful game. And they're like, yeah, I have really good success with it. I'm like, I don't know who you're playing, but you're not playing the armies I play.
Well, also
because the armies I play come to F.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
And they're gonna look at your little splash damage and be like, "That's cute," and then they're gonna remove you from the table.
Yeah, they are. They are. Like the I'm still very interested in like the just score the points game style and wondering how much I can push that like envelope. That's what I've been trying to do in my Zinch Force at the moment. But I recognise I'm doing that with 250 wounds of pink horrors, like, and it's very different doing it with 10 fellas on a 6-up save. Like, so like I think I completely see your points. So yeah, so Tarquin has wants to ask a question, and I think it's going to move in for like my kind of like summation question, I guess, in kind of two fronts. I'll start off with we get the sad out of the way because then we can move to the pause. So if we reduce the points on, like, it's the most overpriced book I think in all of the books, like, by a significant margin.
Sure.
So I think that's a fair like factual statement. Do you think just bringing the points down is all that's really needed, or do you think that there could be some war scroll changes to kind of like bring some more efficacy to the army?
No, I mean, obviously the book is fundamentally bad.
Okay.
Right? Especially on the footing of the current edition. Like a finesse glass defense. I'm never going to call it a glass hammer. You actually have to have hammers for that. Like a finesse chip wound army that relies on mobile positioning and like outmaneuvering your opponent in a 3.0 world where again, like half of the scenarios tend to group the objectives pretty close.
Yeah.
Okay. And so, like, you can't, when you're doing Veins of Gur or whatever, anything that stretches the 3 across the center or the 3 across the center, right? Or whatever. What's your mobility play there? Right? Those objectives there are 3 inches of non-objective holding space in between those two objectives on the board.
Yeah, this is the new shifting objectives, right?
Sure, yeah, or shifting, like, yeah, exactly, like, whatever. There's multiples like this, right, that are either diagonal or horizontal or whatever, right? And, like, what do you do in something like marking territory, where you're trying to take and hold basically 3 of them, and then win the priority in 3, so you insta win the game, or whatever. What do you do in something like Pharaoh Foray, where you've got 3 and 3, and you're trying to both hold yours and push into one of theirs, right? So you can balance all that. Like, what's the play there with mobility?
Yeah, none. You don't even have a teleport, right? I don't think.
No, you do not have a teleport. No.
Uh-oh.
That's why I said we're not the most mobile army, right? Because there are armies that can out-mobile us. Like, they have relatively the same speeds, but also have teleports. Right.
So functionally not great. But like my question is, so you've obviously written a list. It's on the Honest Wargamer website, and I'll include it in the show notes.
Yeah.
So there are some people, no matter what they say, big shout out to Gabe from the Runax, who's told me he's going to podium with Slaanesh this year, no matter what, and then I have to eat a hat. So I'll be excited to see that happen. How do you think you can play Slaanesh in this world, being aware that it's already like you're pushing a rock uphill while wearing a backpack and someone's dragging at your legs and punching you in the face?
Yeah, sure. It's very meta appropriate. You're supposed to like pain in Slaanesh, so it's good. Like the army is thematically designed.
Well, I really enjoyed that it either sat as a dom or now it's just the sub. Like it's one or it's polar. Well, it's one or the other. Yeah.
Yeah. There's no middle ground. They don't go for that vanilla stuff. No, I mean, like, look, the question is, how do you make this army work? I mean, step 1 is you take Be'lakor in the army.
Okay.
That's number 1. Because without Be'lakor, you're dead in the water. Okay? You don't have anything that can kill Archaon. Right? That is not found in this army.
Yeah.
Right?
It's not found in a lot of armies, by the way. Just going to put that there.
Sure, totally fair. You don't have, like, you probably don't have anything that can kill a mega boss on Maw Crusher. Okay? Or a Frostlord on Stonehorn. Right? Like, those, like, 400-point superheroes that can just, like, that are on 3-up saves and can just, like, very easily become immune to Rend 2. right? You just don't have anything that can kill them.
Yeah.
Like, you're not going to win a straight up fight with them. Okay. Who also, by the way, deal oodles of damage that will just blow you away. Now, you can take Archaon yourself, by the by.
Yes.
Right? And, like, that's a great answer. I have a converted Archaon. You're the... I'm really fighting in my mind between third and fourth best use of Archaon.
I think it's fifth.
I'm going to say fourth.
Okay. I mean, Saves to Darkness is also an option as well. So there's 5 options.
Yeah, I understand. I get it. I'm going to say that. Yeah, okay. You know what? Let's say the fight's between fourth and fifth. I don't want to get into it. Certainly, Khorne is better. Certainly, Tzeentch is better. There's no issue there at all, right? And then the question is Nurgle or Slaves better? One of the two definitely is.
Yeah.
Okay. So fine. You can so you're gonna lose to the enemy Archaon. Like, you can't outplay the Tzeentch Archaon or the Khorne Archaon, right? But to me, the problem is your army's so expensive. If you take Archaon, you're a bad home for it, because then you just have nothing on the table.
Yes.
Even underpointed as Archaon is, and he's vastly underpointed. Okay. Like, he should be 1,000 points straight up, no chaser, 1,000 points.
Yeah.
Changes. Okay. He in Slaanesh, you just have so little points for anything else because everything's so expensive. Your army becomes like, I guess you could take him if you really like having 70 wounds on the table.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's
right. And then what they're going to do, quite logically, is kill everything around Archaon.
A lot easier than they would against other armies.
Correct. Yeah, exactly. It's so much easier. Like, when Archaon's in Tzeentch, it's like, okay, well, there's Archaon. I don't want to kill him. Let me go kill the 20 pink horrors who represent 100 wounds. Oh, wait, no, that's also impossible. Hope I can snipe the heroes, I guess. So, like, Bellacor's a must, because he's pointed correctly to actually shut those kind of things down for a little while to hopefully let you get up on points. Use your mobility in the best possible way.
Okay.
I don't know how I play the Force outside of Lurid Haze Invaders, is my honest answer.
Because you want the redeploy.
I want the redeploy. Mm-hmm. It keeps me. It lets me protect key pieces from shooting in round one, right? If I it lets me give the turn away with more safety. And then it also gives me a redeploy, which, by the way, is good for a battle tactic.
Yes. Yeah.
Right, because then I can auto grab the
Savage Spearhead. 2 in there at deployment.
Yeah, the Savage Spearhead. Right. Exactly. Which is good. Like, you got to think about how are you completing your battle tactics, especially in an army like Slaanesh, where you don't have a huge amount of hammers, and so many battle tactics are remove people from an objective. Like, I picked that in a game, went into a unit of zombies with the flaming weapon, Exalted Bladebringer, okay? Like, the broken ranks or whatever, right? Remove or conquer. Conquer in this round, right? Pick kick somebody off an objective. I went into a unit of zombies. I thought, certainly I can lift up this unit of zombies. Nope.
Didn't happen.
There were 4 zombies left. And, there was a necromancer not too far away who was like outside of the objective range, but who was like, they're immune to battle shock. And I was like, okay, I lose. I don't get my battle tactic. Because I couldn't kill 6, no save zombies. They didn't even have save.
Yeah.
Right? So, like, that's the world you're living in. And, so you've got to think about grabbing every battle tactic you can. And Lurid Haze also lets you build extra command points, which is good. I mean, like, CP make the world go round, right? And you need CP to be funding everybody, because you always need everybody punching at maximum efficacy.
Yeah, or even just a redeploy just to make it so that the charge is harder. Just give yourself more time on the board, right?
Yeah, I mean, redeploys are, like, by the way, that's a great tool for somebody like Siggy, right? Who comes in off the ambush, charges in easily 9 inches, right? Kills whatever he's fighting. Somebody, they turn around some part of their army and march up to you to deal with you in their back line. You redeploy away and fall back to the edge of the board.
Yeah.
Right? It's a great play for them.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, it's just the fundamentals of the army are tough. It's not well aligned. Like when they were birthed in 2019, they were so well aligned. They hit the exact tools they needed to win the meta.
At the time.
Right? Because that, at the time, the fundamentals of that army at the time were so aligned with what the meta produced. And that simply isn't the case now.
Yeah.
Right? We're actually completely the opposite direction from what the sort of meta and the fundamentals of the game want.
Right? Yeah, 100%. Yeah. So your list, which you've written up. So far you've included Be'lakor to shut stuff down, so you can hold units.
Yes.
And then what is this Bladebringer build that people have been talking about, or is the Blade Killer? Although he did kill those zombies.
Bladebringer Herald on Exalted Chariot. You give her the Oil of Excruciation out of Lurid Haze, which is the artifact you have to take. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter. She's 10 wounds already, so giving her an extra wound at the beginning of the game doesn't hurt her at all. You then immediately throw that artifact into the Fane, and you roll a die, and on a 2-up you get +1 to hit for the rest of the game.
Okay. So you don't care about the artifact.
Which is basically the last time you'll ever use the Fane in the game, probably. So that's fine. Our terrain piece that literally does one thing at the beginning of the game and then nothing else for the rest of the game is exciting.
Yeah.
Yet another thing I have to remember to pack in my army.
Oh, yeah. At least it's not 2 boats.
So, at least it's not 2 boats. Best news ever.
Yeah.
So, so then you give her Flaming Weapon, like, because all her normal spells she can take her, who gives a crap, they're all bad. Like, the Slaanesh spell lore is generally terrible. It has a couple heals, and that's all you ever take, because that's all that's basically of value. Mm-hmm. Like, we have an enemy targeting horde spell that requires the enemy horde to be wholly within.
Wholly within 18?
Yes. No other horde spell like that has the wholly within anymore. They're all just like within, and everybody in that unit roll a die in this state, they take damage. It's not even that good. Like, it's okay. Yeah. But we have to be wholly within. So you got to really drive right up to that horde, which is exactly what you want to do in Slaanesh. And horde killers themselves aren't that good anymore. So, anyways, you take Flaming Weapons with her, and yeah, she's good. Exalted Bladebringer, you give her the universal spell lore instead of the base spell lore, because you don't need to actually pick the base spell lore at all in this list I gave you. And you're set. She can do work.
Okay, good.
She's okay. The Lord of Pain, you take. Invaders get 3 generals. The Lord of Pain is your actual chosen general. He's okay. The Lord of Pain he's okay. I don't count him as a winner. I don't count him as a loser. I count him as he's okay. He's 5 wounds with a 6-inch move on a 4-up save, but he does have a built-in 5-up after save. You know, he makes 5 attacks on 3s, neg 1, 2 damage. He has the same exact melee profile as that new Warsong Spellsinger thing in Sylvaneth. Yeah. Right? So, like, he can handle himself in a fight, because he has built-in 2 damage. And his 5-up after save can also reflect mortals back at the enemy, which is cool. The important part is when you take him as a general, he makes Twin Souls and Painbringers battle line.
Right, okay.
Your other 2 chosen generals are Sigvald and the
Bladebringer.
The Bladebringer. Yep. And then you've got Sinessa, who, as mentioned, like, she's a good spellcasting piece. She brings knowledge of all of the spells with her, so you don't have to choose any spells for her. Like, she has, you know, like Alariel and those new scrolls, she has it written on there that she knows everything.
Yeah. Lawmaster.
You're only going to cast Pavane with her, but you have cogs. So ideally what you can do is you can keep Sinessa, like, you're going to start by creating cogs kind of behind with those 3 heroes back, hopefully out of sort of range. And then that'll make her into 2 cast, the Bladebringer into 2 cast, right? And Be'lakor into 2 cast.
Okay.
Or into 3 cast, sorry, because Be'lakor is already 2 cast. And, you know, then you've got a lot of casts. Mandeli said, I'm surprised the mask isn't considered decent. The mask is decent. I didn't have room for her in this list. I think the mask is okay. She's not in the losers category. I don't know that she's in the winners category. She's okay. She's fine. And and then that's your hero group right there. That's it.
Okay. I mean, it's very hero heavy, right? Like, and I'm looking at it and I'm like, the only unit in here the most expensive unit is Be'lakor, who's the ally.
Correct. I mean, it has to be.
Yeah.
Right. because your units are all trash. I don't know. There's no good units. So you've got then 2 units of 5 Hellstriders that are both your chaff and a unit of 10 Twin Souls. And your plan is pretty simple. In Lurid Haze, if you roll a 1 on your D3, then you pull off just Siggy.
Yeah.
Okay? If you roll a 2, you pull off Siggy and the Lord of Pain. Okay?
Yeah.
If you roll 3, you pull off Siggy, the Lord of Pain, and the Twin Souls.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does, yeah.
And that's your ambush squad.
Because the Twin Souls should be able to hold quite nicely wherever they do ambush, right? Thanks to Galgotha, the Gravecaller, for all resubscribing. Huge love to all of you. That's like, they're going to hold you down, right? Basically, that's the plan. Hold you back.
Yes. Yeah. The basically, like, if the Twin Souls come in from off board, if you get the 3, that's a pretty great day, because then you can you kind of ambush and you sort of deploy the Twin Souls and the Lord of Pain together. So then in the off turn where they're on the 5-up save, he can choose to give them the rerolls to hit if you want to go that direction, because that's his command ability.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, Suckily, his command ability is a combat phase command ability as well, so you cannot get both +1 to hit and the rerolls, but whatever. Rerolls is generally better than +1 to hit. So, because you're fishing for 6s anyways.
Yeah.
Right. Because you have the fishing for 6s thing. And yeah, that's kind of the general plan. That's it.
Okay.
Use your Hellstriders to, like, go run around and chaff stuff.
And you...
Hey, there you go. There's
the list. I finally realized I could show people. Halfway through this, I was like, at the end, I could show people this. Come on, Rob, you're better than this.
Your battalions, or you put most everything in a battle regiment except a min command entourage. Mm-hmm. And so, there you go. And you're using the command entourage for an extra artifact, which is the Rod of Misrule, which is still a great way to 2-up. It's an extra command point. On a 6, it's D3 extra command points. So, it's good.
Okay, but you're still, like, and I'm sorry you've had to come on the show and do this. I do have to go through every army, right? Like, and Owen's going to do OBR, right? And there's a lot of, like, negatives to talk about there. And I think also Fyreslayers is the one. I'm asking Andy later to come on and talk about Fyreslayers, and I think you can switch it around. But I think one of the really hard things for content creators like you and me and everyone in the world, really, is sometimes just kind of calling it like it is, and unless you're in a tough spot. So you've had a hard sell today to be excited about an army that's in a tough spot as is. So I want to thank you a load for trying to do so. I guess one of the other throwaway kind of comments that people have a lot is that I could have fun with it still. Do you think that this has the opportunity for, like, fun moments in the list still, or do you think, like, it's too poor for even that? Because I'm one of those people who doesn't think that that's really true. I think taking your toys off for 5 turns isn't, like, for 5 games isn't fun. Like, I think it's a weird setup to say that. So, like, but, like, do you think there's some fun available inside of this army or to create this army? Or, like, do you think it's so obviously bad that there will be some, like, movement on this from Games Workshop in the coming, let's say, 6 months?
Can I tell you a funny story?
Please.
I play a teams game in 3.0. Like, we did a doubles game. Okay.
Yeah.
And so it was myself. I played Slaanesh along with Stormcast Ally, who was using all the new Stormcast, like basically the box set plus a unit of Adjudicators, against a Soulblight Gravelords and Lumineth Force. Okay.
Yep.
And the Sonari Lore Seeker, the Wind Seeker, right, or whatever, he had charged into the Vindictors to try to pin them in place. And there was a lot of fights and stuff going on. And what did it come down to was there was the Lore Seeker and 1 Vindictor left. Okay? You with me so far?
Ready.
Trust me, this is going to connect to your story. And then there's a little cheeky Necromancer from the Soulblight Gravelords hiding up here. Mm-hmm. We're in the enemy hero phase. The Lore Seeker rolls to cast. Rolls a miscast. He had already been damaged from the fight. Does 2 mortal wounds to himself. He has 1 wound left at this point. Okay? Yep. The Vindictor, who's the last Vindictor of a 10-man unit, also only has 1 wound left. And the Soulblight Gravelords player is like, oh, I'll get rid of the Vindictor for you. Arcane bolts the
Vindictor.
The Vindictor. So I guess this is technically happening at the beginning of the movement phase, because that's when he releases it. He's like, okay, end of the phase, great, we're all done with our hero, I release the Arcane Bolt. Great, okay. The Vindictor takes the mortal wound, explodes because of the new I'm Stormcast, I Explode rule. Rolls the 3 dice, gets a 6, does a mortal wound, blows up the lore seeker.
Great.
And I can picture that necromancer just going like, haha, got him. Boom, boom.
Yeah.
And then there's just nothing left. He's like, oh, crap. That is not what I intended. That's a fun moment.
Yeah.
That's something like, I remember that story from that game.
Great game. Yeah.
Right? Is there anything in this army that's going to produce those kinds of moments? No.
No.
Like, it is an army that rewards an extremely, if you are the type of player that really loves Slaanesh and really loves a very careful, metered, extremely finesse playstyle, if you like to think of yourself as the big brain, fifth dimensional chess player, okay, then yes, I think you can have fun trying to pilot this because it represents a challenge. And you're the type of person who likes that challenge, right? That is a psychographic profile. Mm-hmm. There are people who enjoy that type of game. I'm not one of them, okay? I got into Slaanesh because I want to smash, mm-hmm. right? Like, that's what we do. That's supposed to be what Slaanesh is about. And I'm sad to see what the army's become. That my favorite model in the history of models, the Keeper of Secrets, has become this like shell of her former self. Like a joke. Like she's a punchline. Mm-hmm. Shalaxi's a punchline. Mm-hmm. You know, Bloodthirsters, for all their faults, are still almost half the cost.
And Killy
like,
in
yeah,
the
they
right
might
situation.
Not do much.
And Killy in the right situation.
And Killy in the right situations. Like, they can do work pound for pound, mm-hmm. pound for point. Right? I'm not here to defend Bloodthirsters either. I think they need a rewrite. Right?
Not quite as terrifying as you would expect from the Lord of War, but sure.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. But at least you're not overpaying to the moon for them. Right? Yep. Like, they're hero monsters that are like, yeah, okay, they're maybe slightly overcosted for what their stats are, but they're not the worst. Like, I mean, it's just a joke. Mm. Right?
It's very disappointing. Like, it is. Like, mainly because I would say, like, I don't think when Slaanesh came out, it was positive in any way, shape, or form.
No, it was a horribly negative experience for to play.
But I think that was because of the mechanics more than anything else. But like, what's sad to see is not like a rework of the mechanics, especially to include all the new models, right? Because there are people who are going to look at this range and think this is phenomenal, because it is phenomenal. So like, they're going to want to get into it, and I think this is a really tough spot, and it's one of the hardest things to do, as you know, when we do any of this commentary or this punditry, is to really like dampen people's spirits about an army. Like, it makes me feel, I don't want to, I don't want to to release bad things because then I have to say so. Like, that's one of the hardest parts, right?
Yeah.
But
like, it's not, I don't want to overstate it at the same time. It's not like it's torture to play or something. Right.
Well, also, and also, if you're playing, like, see, one of those things that's really hard, I think, for people to get is like, and I relate this to a story that I've played, like, I've told a lot on this show, and I'll tell it again in case anyone who's listening is new. Like, first time I ever played Ogres ever in Warhammer Fantasy Battle, I had no idea what I was doing. I was very, very new. I kept losing to my friend's army. I didn't really understand it. I went on some blogs. They were like, Ogres are a movement army, blah blah blah. Like, and I kept playing. I kept losing. It's because I really didn't understand it. And then I finally watched some ETC players playing with Ogres, where they just deployed in the corner and cannoned off some stuff, and then they threw a gut star forward. I was like, oh, this doesn't look like anything how I thought the game should look anyway. Like, this is not like war. Like, I was like, what's this that I'm seeing, this math angle thing?
Right.
And that's also true in this situation. Like, but I think one of the unfortunate things about the Slaanesh book, and books that aren't good anyway, or units that aren't good anyway, so I can lump everything in here and we can kind of have this chat for a second, is that you sometimes, if you're not very good, like, or you haven't played a lot, both of those two I think are true together. And sometimes you can play a lot and not be very good. I'm that example. Is you can not know why you're losing. You could just be playing with your friend. You'd be like,
yeah,
sure.
I
always lose, and then you're self-critical. You're like, I'm bad. and you don't understand that the tools you've got aren't bad. And that's really disappointing for people. And I really do wish that tomes and units didn't exist in this way, because I feel like that there's a portion of society, we kind of talked about it pre-show, there's a portion of the gaming community, who are going to be having bad experiences. They're not really going to be understanding why, and that's really unfortunate, because you kind of just think playing games should be fun. I know that's a bold claim, but I reckon people should have a fun time in their hobby time. Bold, I know, but anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I really can't imagine what this army would be like for a new player to pilot. I can't imagine them rolling up and following what it seems like the army is telling them to build, like, out of the book, and they take like some Blissbarb archers as their battle line and stuff. And I'm trying to imagine a new player, like piloting this army out of the book and just getting smashed over and over and over again and not understanding why. Right? Like, it would be just the most horrible experience.
Especially after committing so much time to paint, because then they're not going to paint quick either. They're not 30 plague bearers.
No, they're definitely not. So, Jacob Barry's in the comment, he said, I hate to keep beating this drum, but playing Archeon and Slaanesh is fun, but it's really just an S2D list with Slaanesh handicaps on it. Yeah, exactly. Like, that's exactly right. I think that there is a way, like, if you're the psychographic profile, like I said, this army isn't torture. I don't want to overstate things, okay? Like, it's not the end of the world, for goodness sakes. You can have fun with the army, all right? But you have to be a very specific type of psychographic profile. Like, I'm not excited to get this army back on the table. And that's unfortunate, right? If you're like a Spike, you have no interest in this army. If you're a Timmy, you have no interest in this army. If you're a very particular brand of Johnny, where you like the uphill challenge and very careful, like, planned out finesse synergistic moves, then sure, right? This army could be for you, right? But that's a sort of very high level of play that only a very small subset of people enjoy. I'm excited to put my Sons of Badmon on the table. I'm excited to put my Ironjaws on the table. I'm excited to put my Skaven on the table. Right? Those are, like, I look forward to those.
Yeah.
I'm like, yes, let's play that. Like, I'm excited. I got lists I keep thinking of. I am like, yes, let's do this. Let's do that. I want to try this unit. I want to try that unit. I'm going to play this thing. Do I want to put Kragnos in? What am I doing? What's going on? I'm excited to play my basic Slaves to Darkness.
Yeah. Like, so you're excited about 3, right? Like, as a takeaway.
Oh, yeah.
You're excited about 3.
Like, I've got lots of armies I'm playing that I'm really excited about. I'll play Slaanesh some, just to really make sure I still get my reps in, But it doesn't excite me in the way it used to.
Yeah.
Because because I don't get to play with the toys I wanted to play with. There's a huge swath of the army that's like, if you take these things, you made a wrong choice.
Agreed. Well, listen, Vince, it's been lovely having you on the show. Thank you so much. I think, as always, you and me, we should just do a show next week where we just shoot the shit. Because I think there's so much for us to both catch up on with 3 and generally the world. So it'd be so fun to talk to you about that. I know you always have a bunch of thoughts for me, which I always appreciate. So thank you. And thank you for doing this as well, because actually this is, having gone through this now, actually it's more of a, it was a harder ask or a harder yes, so thank you again for doing so, than I really realised. Like, you had Chris on yesterday, and he was so excited to be talking about Idoneth Deepkin. You've had to, like, drag yourself through something that you love that's painful, which, I mean, like, right on the money in the narrative.
It's a very meta army. It's right in line. I also appreciate that the way you organized your faction reactions, like Jacob Barry is coming on to do Doc in a little while, okay?
Yeah. So yeah, we'll be live again. If you're watching this, we'll be live again in about 50 minutes, so 2:30 in UK time. So, and then he's going to be all. He's like, "Have you played Marathi? It's so fun!"
It is going to be a night and day difference of these two worlds, like, because the two armies are like. I know you need to go, and I'm sorry. I just one more thing. The two armies have a lot of are thematically very similar. Even their main baseline unit is very thematically similar. Right? They're both melee-focused speed murder armies, like murder ladies, with unexplained shooting also being part of the army. Right? The difference is One of them is way underpointed and has a tremendously good like focal centerpieces to build around and synergism to the moon. And one of them is not. Has the whatever the opposite of that is. That's the difference.
Yeah, I need to thank you, and I hope obviously the Twitch chat, who I know are thanking you. The comment in there is from HMS Banksy. Great patience, you two. Well done. Hard listen, but even harder for you guys because it is hard. Because you don't wake up and be like. And Vince woke up early for this. He didn't be like, can't wait to really tell everyone that something's shit for an hour and a half. So like, thanks, Vince. It's deeply appreciated, and thank you to all of you. Someone's asking if there's an ogre one. Yeah. So all of these are on YouTube or as a podcast, of course, and they're live in front of a Twitch audience, so you guys can go back and they're up already, and they're all brilliant. And what's so good for me is just having someone who knows the army far better than I do for each one of these, and just hearing their excitement or love or disappointments in that situation. So it's been good. So yeah, and we're doing 2 more today. So if you are like around listening live now, we'll be live at 2:30 and 4 o'clock. So we're doing Daughters of Cain and we're doing Slaves to Darkness at 4. So that'll be 3 in the can. So still just hunting down some players of note in some of the other factions. It's really hard finding a Fire Slayers player because like, hey, have you got any Fire Slayers? Do you know about Fire Slayers? They're like, I played Hearthguard Berserkers. I was like, that's not what I asked. It's not. I said, have you played Fire Slayers? They're like, no, I've played Hearthguard Berserkers. I'm like, fucking Christ. Like, do you know, sure, you've got other units? Like, wait, what? What?
No, I thought Fire Slayers were all Magmadroths and Auric Hearthguard now. I thought that's all that army was.
Apparently.
So.
But, like, I got to find that guy who knows. So we'll see. All right, anyway.
Hold on. I don't know if Jim McConis is serious or not. So I don't know if he's joking, but if not, hi, Jim. New player. Welcome, if you are. And yes, I have another show. It's called Warhammer Weekly. It's every Wednesday. Just look for my channel on YouTube. Rob will put the links below. But if you're being serious, welcome. I'm glad you enjoyed the information about Slaanesh and happy to help.
He is. He every Wednesday, Warhammer Weekly. Go check it out. It's phenomenal. So yeah, go look at that. And I will include in the show notes. Also, I'll include the show notes Vince's list. Thanks for coming on, Vince. Thanks everyone for joining us live. You're all obviously brilliant. And then thank you to everyone who listens to the podcast or supports us on Patreon. So it's been cool. Thank you again, Vince. Any shout outs? You got an opportunity for a shout out today before we go.
Oh my goodness. So many shout outs. Yes. I want to shout out you for doing all these list reactions. It's been great. Or faction reactions, sorry. I really love watching all these. It's been fantastic to have everybody on. To Smorgan for doing a great job with the Skaven review. He should have gone another hour and talked about all the more good units. And I'm going to have him on the show here in a little while to actually talk about Skaven on Warhammer Weekly. So very excited about that. Can't wait for that show. And to my lost previous co-host, Tom, who I hope is doing better and has been going through a rough patch in real life, but is hopefully going to be back joining us soon. So
hey, massive love to Tom. He's a wonderful person, so I hope he gets him soon. My shout-out, obviously, is to Arthur Vogalis. Big love to him. As always. A big shout-out to Arthur. And thanks, everyone, for tuning in. We'll see you guys in not long now. It's only 45 minutes till Jacob Berry gets to tell you how much better Daughters of Cain are always than Slaanesh in every way. Thanks, Vince. We'll see you guys soon. Thanks for listening.